What's up, Falcons Nation? It's your boy Jew coming at you guys with another edition of What's the Word, DirtyBird. We do this every Tuesday at 11 a.m. But I hope all is going well with you guys so far this week. I want to salute all of the veterans, as yesterday was Veterans Day. Shouts out to all of those who have served or who are currently serving. We appreciate all that you do. My father was actually a retired Navy. I have an older brother that was also in the Coast Guard who's now out. And then my younger brother was actually also in the Navy, and he's recently gotten out of the Navy. So want to salute each and every active duty service member, those that have been lost. Shouts out to them and their families as well. But with that being said, we got a lot to talk about today in regards to the Atlanta Falcons. Are these Atlanta Falcons contenders or pretenders? And then we're also going to do, of course, preview this Sunday's matchup against the Denver Broncos. But as you guys already know, the Falcons did fall and lose Sunday's game in New Orleans by a score of 20-17. The New Orleans Saints did split with the Atlanta Falcons this season. They did protect their home field and their home turf, but the Falcons are still sitting at 4-1 in the division. We currently sit at 6-4 with our total record, and we're still looking really good as far as the playoff hopes and things of that nature because we're so far ahead in our division. It looks like the Falcons are still the front runners to win the NFC South. Right now, I believe we're 6-2 in the conference in the NFC as far as NFC opponents. So we still are looking pretty good as far as the playoffs go and things of that nature. But I do want to break down some numbers and things of that nature during this show, whether I believe this Atlanta Falcons team are contenders or pretenders. Then I also want to get you guys' thoughts as well. We'll start the show with that. But first off, I just want to say what's up to each and every one of you guys that has joined the show so far. So shouts out to DirtyBird Bobby. He said, "What's good, Juju? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining me on this Tuesday morning." Xavier Littman, what's happening, man? I appreciate you joining as well. Jay Holland says, "Yo, what's good? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining the show." Jonte Rozier says, "Good morning, Jew. What's happening?" And Bobby Bone, Boy Zone 3 says, "What's up, Jew? What's going on, man? I appreciate you joining." Miss Sonia's in the building. Good morning. I thank you for joining the show as well. Jonte Rozier says, "We have the potential to be contenders." Yeah, I think I might agree with that statement as well. John St. Clair says, "Good morning, Jew. What's going on, John? Good morning. I appreciate you joining me as always." And Strapped Up 24 says, "What's good, Jew? I hope you are doing well. I think we still need to bring in a pass rusher. We need to put pressure on the QB. I think we need to bring in a kicker as well." Okay, so we'll talk a little bit about that as well, of whether the Falcons need to bring in a new kicker. I did give my thoughts yesterday. If you guys checked out my video with Young Wei Koo, but personally in that video, I think we're okay at the kicker position. But I definitely think that pass rush is a must. I've been stating this uh pretty much since I've had my channel over the last 5 years that the Falcons need to improve the pass rush, but definitely in the draft. You guys know I was a huge Dallas Turner fan. He's a Minnesota Viking. I was a huge Layatu Latu, guy as well, of us bringing in him. And there was a couple other guys like Chop Robinson, who plays with the Miami Dolphins, and a few other guys that I thought that would have been solid pass rushers. Jared Verse, who currently plays with the LA Rams. I believe he's leading all rookies as far as pressures and things of that nature at that edge rusher position. So I really feel like all of those guys could have helped this Atlanta Falcons roster, but we know that we decided to go quarterback. So, at this point, that ship has sailed. But I definitely want to jump into some different topics, and we'll talk a little bit about the pass rush as well. But first off, we're going to start the show off with the topic of the day. Are the Atlanta Falcons contenders or pretenders? Personally, I think that the Falcons are contenders. I don't believe that they're pretenders. If you look at the numbers, which I did go and look at some of the numbers and things of that nature, where this Atlanta Falcons team rank in the league, And I got pulled this information from Fox Sports. They do their own breakdowns and things and their analysis on where the Falcons rank out of all 32 teams in every category. So first, we're gonna start off with the defense side of the ball with our Atlanta Falcons, which to me is the weaker of the two out of the defense and the offense. I really feel like this is an offensive-minded Atlanta Falcons team. The offense, the strength is on the offensive side. The defensive side of the ball is the weakness of this Atlanta Falcons team, or the weaker of the two. But the Falcons' total defense is currently sitting at 20th. We're ranked 20th in the league right now in total defense. Passing defense, we're 19th. Rushing defense, we're 23rd in the league. Scoring defense, we're 20th. Red zone defense, we're 19th. And then third down defense, we're 29th. So out of all of those stats that I kind of went and looked at and things of that nature, the biggest one that was alarming to me and that stood out for this defense, and we've been talking about it. I've been talking about it. The heavy hitters been talking about it. Mike has been talking about it. K Styles, Atlanta Falcons Nation, and a lot of the Atlanta Falcons content creators have been talking about this Atlanta Falcons defense, and we need to be better on defense and on third down defense. We're 29th right now in third down defense in efficiency, getting off the field on third downs. And I really feel like that's one of the Achilles heels of this Atlanta Falcons team. And I have talked about this, all season long, that this Atlanta Falcons team has to be better on first and second down at stopping the run and causing negative plays. You heard also rushing defense is 23rd. That's not good. I really feel like if this Atlanta Falcons team wants to make a deep playoff run and a deep playoff push, we're going to have to be better at forcing turnovers. We're going to have to be better at stopping people earlier on first and second down, creating more negative plays to put teams behind the chains, which gives you an opportunity to rush the passer. Yes, I believe that the Atlanta Falcons don't have great pass rushers on this team currently. They tried to go out and bring in Matthew Judon to kind of help this team. They did draft the kid out of Washington, but he ended up getting hurt. And Braylon Trice, who is supposed to be a guy that can come off the edge. You have Arnold Epikady. You have Lorenzo Carter, who's currently injured. You have guys like James Smith-Williams. You have Grady Jarrett. So you have guys on this team, but you don't really have that athletic type of guy that can come off the edge, that can consistently get pressure. Matt Judon is an effort type guy. He is a guy that can get pressure, but you have to run stunts and things of that nature for him. He's not the quickest guy off the edge. He's not the most bendy and flexible guy off the edge. He's more of a power rusher, and he's more of a, as I mentioned, a guy that's going to get sacks and get tackles for loss and things of that nature in the run game. He's not really a premier edge guy. When you talk about pass rush moves and things of that nature, I do believe that he's a guy that can get you 10 sacks in the season consistently, but you have to do certain things to put him in positions to succeed. Now, with this defense, and I've mentioned this throughout this season so far, I really feel like that we're going to have to do a better job at bringing pressure and blitzing and things of that nature to create negative plays. On first and second down, if you're not able to get negative plays with your base defense, we're going to have to start bringing pressure, bringing safeties down, bringing corners off the edge to help, cause negative plays, to force teams into third and long situations. Right now, I feel like this Atlanta Falcons team, we're a bend don't break defense. If we were a boxing and if the Atlanta Falcons were a boxer, I really feel like we're like a Pretty Boy Floyd type of boxer. We're not going in to try to slug people. If you remember, Floyd Mayweather, later on in his boxing career, he was a guy that was a defensive fighter, meaning he waits for his opponent to make a mistake and then he takes advantage of that mistake. And that's how this Atlanta Falcons team plays defense. We play a lot of zone coverage. We wait for tip balls to try to get interceptions. We try to, force turnovers, but we're not a team that puts pressure on the opposing team. We are not a strike first type of defense. And I really feel like the Falcons are going to have to change that. We're going to have to, like I said, bring more pressure. We're going to have to be better on first and second down. Now, one way that I think that the Falcons can litigate some of the issues that they're having as far as stopping the run on first and second down, they need to play Eddie Goldman more. They need to play David Onyemata more, Grady Jarrett. Those guys have to play on first and second down when we know teams are trying to run the football, because Eddie Goldman is 6'3", 320 something pounds. He's one of the bigger guys on this team. He's hard to move on the line of scrimmage when teams are trying to run the football. I really feel like one of the reasons why the Falcons have struggled, especially early on in the season, is at that nose position and at that three tech position. They're playing guys that's too light in the tail. We have guys like Zach Harrison. They've been trying to play. We have guys like Graham, TQ that we had playing. Taquan Graham was playing a lot of the nose tackle when they rotate in, playing a lot of three tech, but he's not the biggest guy. He's only like 295 pounds, where you want to have a guy that's 300 plus playing in the middle of the defense. That's going to be able to control the guard, control the center, control the offensive lineman, and not allowing them to get to the second level up to your linebackers. So I really feel like that was the most alarming stat as far as on the defensive side of the ball, is that 29th in third down efficiency, getting off the field. Because when you allow teams to run the ball, when you allow teams to be more physical than you are, that's, for one thing, it keeps Kirk Cousins and your high-powered offense on the sideline. For two, it limits the possessions in the game that your offense is going to have, because they're out there on the field draining the clock, and meaning it's going to shorten the game. And for three, for the defensive side of things, it tires out your defense when they're on the field majority of the game, because you can't get stops. So I really feel like those are the main issues right now for the defense. As I mentioned, I do still think that this team is a contending team. We are contenders because there are no teams right now in the league that are running away from the Atlanta Falcons. All of these teams are playing really close games. Even the Kansas City Chiefs, who currently sit at, I believe, 9-0 or 8-0, even they haven't looked great. They're winning games at the end of games, but they're not dominating games. They played the same Tampa Bay team that we beat weeks prior on Monday Night Football last Monday night, and they barely won the game in overtime. So that just goes to show, and this is a Tampa Bay Bucks team without Mike Evans, the same Tampa Bay Bucks team without Chris Godwin, took the defending champs down to the wire and had a chance to win the game. So it just goes to show you that it's the small, intricate details and the 1 to 2 to 3 plays that I always say that would change the game. You have to make those plays when it matters most. And the Atlanta Falcons, for the most part, they've done that in the games that we've won. But in the games that we've lost, like Sunday's game, it's been an issue where we're making mistakes at the wrong time, and we're not capitalizing on the mistakes of our opponents. Now, I want to jump back into the chat really quick, and then I'll give you guys some offensive efficiency numbers as well, because that was just the defensive side of things. But let's see here. Xavier Littman says, "Hey, Drew, I said it last night on the Originators show in the chat. Our biggest issue that's holding us back is the lack of production from our recent defensive second and third picks in the draft." Okay, yeah, I can see that. I mean, I think guys are doing okay in the draft, but as you mentioned, guys need to step up. Like Arnold Ebiketie, those guys that we have, they have to continue to develop. But I really feel like the main issue is we should be drafting defense in the first round. We shouldn't be waiting to try to find a diamond in the rough. When you start waiting the second and third round, it could be that picking the wrong players, but it also could be you could be picking the top defensive ends, the top defensive tackles. When you're in the first round, the good teams do that. The teams that are good in the trenches, the Philadelphia Eagles 2 years in a row drafted Jordan Davis. Then in the next year, they came back and drafted Jalen Carter. And they're one of the top defensive teams in the league. Why? Because they consistently build in the trenches. They understand how important having those big guys up front to stop the run, it makes teams one-dimensional where they have to pass the football. So I really feel like it comes down to the Falcons having to buy into, we have to take those guys early in the draft. Stop looking for the diamond in the rough and take the guys that are presented there. These guys that are coming out of Alabama, Georgia, the teams that are good in the trenches on the college football, those are the guys that you should be drafting come draft time. You should be drafting those guys that are the better guys in the trenches, the guys that have proven themselves on the collegiate level to be dominant. We have to start drafting those guys earlier in the draft. And Bobby Boy says we need this win this Sunday to go to the bye with momentum. I can definitely agree. We need to win this game against the Denver Broncos. We definitely need this win because you don't want to go into the bye on a 2-game losing streak. I completely agree. John Sinclair says, I think we're contenders. I think Kirk is a true competitor, as is Grady and Jesse Bates, who are the leaders on this team. And that's a huge statement, a great statement by John. I completely agree. We have some great leaders on this team. We have guys that have been in this league a very long time. Between Grady, Jesse Bates, Kirk, and also Jake Matthews on that offensive line, these are guys that have played in Super Bowls. If you guys think about it, which is amazing, and I just came to my thoughts. You got Grady Jarrett, who's played in the Super Bowl, who's a captain on this team. You have Jesse Bates, who played in the Super Bowl with the Cincinnati Bengals. You have Jake Matthews, who also has played in the Super Bowl. That's a captain on this team. So the only guy I believe that's one of the captains on this team that hasn't played in the Super Bowl is Kirk. Out of all of the captains on this team, all of these guys have played in the Super Bowl, have seen how to have success in this league, has played on contending teams. So they know what it takes to get to the mountaintop, or at least to get to the final game and try to win that trophy. We don't have a Super Bowl winner on this Atlanta Falcons team, from my understanding, outside of Raheem Morris and the coaching staff, those guys that came over from the Rams, those leaders. None of those guys are currently Super Bowl champions, but they played at a high enough level to get to the final game. So they understand what it takes. Jonte Rozier says we could have already had the defense established, take the best players available, has set us back, I think. What's your thoughts? Yeah, and I completely agree. I don't think that taking the best player available necessarily has set us back, but I really feel like when you draft 3 offensive players, dynamic players in the first round, 3 years in a row, this is what you get. You have to hit in the second and third and fourth round. So you can kind of say that it has set the defense back. But I really also think what has set this team back as well is you keep changing defensive philosophy. So you went from, I believe we had like 2 or 3 different defensive coordinators over the last couple years. You had Dean Pease, then you had last year the guy that went over to the Jaguars, and then now you have Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake. So in defense to some of these players, they've played in multiple defensive schemes and have had to learn multiple defensive schemes. Guys like Arnold Ebiketie, he hasn't had a consistent coach or played in a Pacific scheme for a really long time. He's had to learn 2 or 3 different schemes. So in his defense, that could be another issue, is like there's no stability at that defensive coordinator position, and you're having these guys learn new philosophies every single year, which can make it hard for a player to develop. I'm not trying to give these guys an excuse, because at the end of the day, Arnold Ebiketie, those guys still have to take the bull by the horns in the offseason. That's why you go and work with pass rush specialists and things of that nature, so you can work on your one-on-one ability. But at the end of the day, we don't really know what these coaches are asking these guys to do week in and week out, what the philosophies are, what the techniques are, and things of that nature. So it could be a mixture of coaching, and it could be a mixture of players just not developing, players not taking their craft seriously, or guys just, their growth being stunted, meaning they hit their ceiling. They're not no better than where they are now. So that's the risk you take when you draft guys, whether they're in the first round or whether they're in the last round of the draft. You never know. And let's see here. David Littman says, we just not getting enough out of Grant Harrison, A.K. Anderson. We spent draft capital on players that just are not performing at the level we need them to. I mean, I can agree to a certain extent with that. I can't, because these guys haven't shown us that they're big time players. I can give agree with part of that statement. And shouts out to my boy Mad Mike Sports in the building. He says, Jew, breaking news, Taquan Graham could be done with the pectoral. Yeah, I heard that yesterday, I think it was, in Raheem Morris's press conference where he kind of said that it looked like he had a serious injury, but he didn't go into detail. Now, I don't wish injury upon no player because Taquan Graham, I think he does have some upside. I don't think that he's a true defensive tackle. So I think that they're playing him out of position. That's been the main issue. Because if you guys remember, a couple years ago, Taquan Graham was like one of those guys that was actually playing really well. So I just think in this scheme, he's not fitting. They're not putting him in the right position to succeed in this scheme. And let's see. William Amy says on all three phases we failed. Yeah, Sunday all three phases didn't do their job. They didn't play didn't play well enough to win the game. And shouts out to Big Ant in the building. He says, "What's up, Jew and everyone in the chat? Good morning, man. I appreciate you joining us." And Mad Mike says, pick a struggle. I think it's a mixture of all patients. Yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's been hit and miss. It's been everybody's has played a part in the losses that we've had. The Seattle loss, all three phases didn't come to play the game or play well enough to win the game because of our own miscues. The same thing with this game against the New Orleans Saints. All three phases didn't come to play the game. They didn't play well enough to win because of self-inflicted wounds. But with that being said, I want to jump into the offensive efficiency as well. And as I mentioned, I pulled this information from Fox Sports. So with the offensive side of things, which I think is the strength of this Atlanta Falcons team, I've said this over the last couple weeks, that this puts me in the mind of the 2016 Falcons that went to the Super Bowl. Not saying that they are that team, but if you remember that team, we were really good on offense. We had a defense that was bend, don't break, but they got key turnovers, key stops when we needed them. And that's what propelled that team to the Super Bowl. So on the offensive side of the ball, in total offense, this Atlanta Falcons team ranks 8th in the league right now. In passing offense, we rank 7th. In rushing offense, we ranked 18th in the league. In scoring offense, we ranked 12th in the league. In red zone efficiency, we're 13th in the league. And then on third down efficiency on offense, we're 15th in the league, which is like in the middle. So the biggest thing that stood out to me as far as the offense of how they can improve, they are the strength of this team. But I think the way that we improve on the offensive side of things, we need to run the ball a little bit more to balance things out, to keep the defense off the field and get those guys rested up, because it shows that we're 18th in the league. And right now we're 7th in passing. And we've said this numerous times. We've said this in our post-game shows. You've heard Mad Mike say this. You've heard K-Style say this. And you heard me say this ad nauseum. We have to stop going away from what's working. If your offense, if you're running the ball well, stick with the run. Don't go away from it. I understand you want to be balanced on offense, but at times I think that Zach Robinson, we get pass happy for whatever reason, and that's what cost the Atlanta Falcons the Super Bowl in 2016. Because we have an explosive offense and we have so many weapons with Kyle Pitts, with Drake London, with Mooney, with Ray McCloud, sometimes I think that they get so antsy, like let's get everybody involved instead of let's stick with the run and let's drain some of this clock and let's shorten this game. We are winning this game. Or let's allow our offensive line to be physical, because that's the identity of this team. You guys know I can continually have said, pick an identity and stick to it. Find an identity and stick to it. And that's been the biggest issue with this Atlanta Falcons team. And as I state that, you see six-man Case Styles in the building. Shouts out to six-man. He says lots of inconsistencies. That's been an issue. Too many inconsistencies. We're not being consistent. We're not picking an identity and sticking with it. In that game against the Saints, you got Tyler Algier rolling. You had Bijan Robinson rolling. There was no reason late in that game to start trying to pass the ball. I understand, we want to move the ball and we want to put up points and things of that nature. And Kirk We trust him to, make the right decisions. I understand there's going to be a time and place for that. But now I kept saying that last night in the chat during the originator show, that it's a time and a place for everything. And I feel like that's been the biggest issue with Zach Robinson as far as him calling plays is he's a good offensive play caller, but he's inexperienced. And sometimes his inexperience shows, and sometimes it's in the worst moments or in the biggest moments of the game. His inexperience shows where he doesn't understand the flow of the game, the tempo of the game, that, okay, in this scenario, let's just run the ball. The offensive line is mauling this defensive line. We're controlling the clock. We're controlling, we got control of the trenches. Let's just dominate and run the ball. They can't stop it. Let's just run it down their throat. Similar to what we did in prior weeks. I believe it was before this week, last week, where we ran the ball where Tyler Algier scored the final touchdown and the whole offensive line basically carried him into the end zone. That was, to me, one of the biggest plays in the game because the Atlanta Falcons established the dominance, and we showed that you can't stop the run. When you see a team can't stop the run, like the New Orleans Saints, we're not stopping the run. We're averaging 4 and 5 yards a clip. When you're doing that, it's no reason to go away from it. Keep running the ball until the other team stops it. But if they can't stop it, keep running it. And I feel like sometimes we try to get too cute and say, well, let's just do something different. As K-Style said it last night, sometimes we get to experimenting, but it's not time to experiment in that particular instance. If you want to, and you heard K-Style say this last night, if you want to experiment, he said experiment earlier in the game. And I completely agree with that. Is if you're going to try a trick play, or if you're going to try something new, don't do it when it's the last drive of the game or the second last drive of the game or in the fourth quarter of the game. You want to experiment probably within, to be honest, within those first 15 plays we talk about, those scripted plays. If you're going to try something, if you're just trying to try out something new, you want to do that earlier on in the game. But personally, I don't like a whole lot of experimenting personally. If you guys want just my personal preference, I prefer that you just stick to whatever your identity is. So I want the Falcons to come out in these games and run the football and establish the line of scrimmage. Once you establish that line of scrimmage, you come out and hit the other team in the mouth and you kind of push their defensive line around. I really feel like that opens up the running game because now they have to drop that safety down. They have to drop that extra man in the box. And all that does is make it easier, clearer passing lanes for Kirk Cousins to throw the ball through. When those linebackers have to step up, when you have to drop that safety, that extra man down in the box to try to help stop the run, that only creates more one-on-one matchups for Kyle Pitts, more one-on-one matchups for guys like Drake London, more one-on-one matchups for guys like Darnell Mooney, who we've seen he can't really be stopped in one-on-one situations because of his elite route running ability. So I really feel like the Falcons just have to do a better job at understanding who we are and what our strengths are and what our weaknesses are, and then allow those different aspects, whether it's the offense or the defense, they should be going hand in hand. So the offense should be calling the plays as if we're looking out for our defense. So it may be a situation where we know we could score here, but let's take a little bit of more time off this clock. So let's run the ball. Let's snap the ball closer to one, because usually you get, you have a play clock. So you want to start draining that clock down before you hike the ball. Let's give our defense some rest instead of let's go up tempo. Sometimes it's good to, okay, let's just slow it down. Let's just run the ball. Let's waste as much clock as possible to limit the other team from having an opportunity to score. So those are the small, intricate details about playing football, understanding time and possession. And if you look at the teams, and I mentioned this last night with the Kansas City Chiefs and Andy Reid, if you look at the New England Patriots when Bill Belichick was coaching them, those teams understood time and possession, and that's why they won a lot of games, is because they understood situational football. And I really feel like that's been some of the Falcons' Achilles heel over the last couple of years, especially when we had Arthur Smith. They didn't understand situational football. That's what affected us in the Super Bowl. They didn't understand situational football. That's probably the biggest Achilles heel for the 49ers and for Kyle Shanahan. He's a great offensive mind, similar to Zach Robinson. He's a great coach, But his problem is he doesn't understand situational football and when he should run the ball, when he should be experimenting, trying to throw the ball. And that's what has gotten Kyle Shanahan in trouble throughout his coaching career is he goes up against guys that understands time and possessions and understands situational football better than he does. And that's what has cost him the 3 Super Bowls that he's been in. Us with the Falcons and the 2 Super Bowls that he has been with the 49ers against the Chiefs. They had the lead in both Super Bowls. If you remember the Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers, both Super Bowl games, in that first game, you literally had the Honey Badger came out after the game stating, we just on defense, the defensive side of the ball, just like hope that they would stop running the ball because we couldn't stop it. We just wish that please they just stop running the ball and start passing the ball, put the ball in Jimmy Garoppolo's hands. And that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan did. In his second Super Bowl, it was similar. Kyle Shanahan in the fourth quarter, they stopped running the football. They stopped establishing the dominance. They put the ball in Brock Purdy's hands. And when it came down to the end, it wasn't enough. The Kansas City Chiefs was able to pull it off. So that would be my deal with the Falcons is we're contenders. I don't believe that we're pretenders. I really feel like this Falcons team is built to play offense first. We're built because you had those 3 back-to-back years where you went offense in the first round, you went Kyle Pitts, you went Bijan Robinson, you went Drake London with those 3 first-round picks. This team is built to play offense, and then the defense is built to play basically play with a lead. So it's similar to those Dan Quinn type defenses that we had where they were smaller defenses, but they were able to pin their ears back and get after the passer. If you remember the year that Vic Beasley led the league in sacks, well, there was a reason why his numbers were inflated. Not that he was technically a super great pass rusher, but he got a lot of attempts to rush the passer because the Falcons were up by multiple possessions, meaning teams had to be one-dimensional. They had to pass the football because the Falcons would jump out to 21-point lead, 14-point lead, 10-point lead, and it's late in the game. Teams have to pass the ball, so that gives guys more opportunities and more cracks at rushing the passer. And in that year, Vic Beasley was able to take advantage of those opportunities. The same thing with Dwight Freeney on that team. We were able to pin our ears back on defense because we were able to play with a lead. So this team with the Atlanta Falcons this year in 2024, this is a very similar team to that Falcons team in 2016 that we're a high-powered offense. We're 8th overall in offense. So we can move the ball. We go up and down the field on offense, but we got to do our part as far as punching it into the end zone when we get there. Yes, in this last game, Younghoe Koo did miss field goals that he should have made, but we're not trotting Younghoe Koo out there on the field if you score touchdowns. You eliminate those problems. Even though I believe that Younghoe Koo, did have a bad game. Yes, he only had one job and he didn't do it well on Sunday by kicking those field goals. But if you're scoring touchdowns in those situations, the Saints don't have an opportunity. And that was one of my keys to victory last Tuesday for the Falcons was score points. I said that score touchdowns. If you score touchdowns, the Saints wouldn't have had enough to beat us last Sunday. The reason we lost that game last Sunday was all 3 phases didn't come to play, but the main issue was you didn't put up touchdowns. If you score touchdowns, every time we were in the red zone last week, we win that football game handily. But with that being said, I do want to go ahead and jump back in the chat, say what's up to a couple of you guys who I hadn't spoke to. So let me scroll back a little bit. So shouts out to Auntie Pam in the building. She says, hello, Drew, and everyone in the chat. Happy Tuesday. Good morning, Auntie Pam. I hope all is going well with you. And shouts out to Miss Christie in the building as well. She says, rise up Falcons family on this terrific Tuesday. Yes, good morning. I hope all is going well with you as well. I thank you guys for joining me as always. And let me scroll through here. All right. And Strapped Up 24 says Kurt has to also be disciplined and take what the defense gives you. Don't force anything that's not there. Yeah, that was one of the turning points in the game. The second to last drive of the game, him throwing that pick across the middle to Drake London was not the right pass. But in the defense of Kirk Cousins, I understand that at times you're going to throw interceptions. When you're throwing the ball at an alarming clip, the way that we're trying to throw the ball, when you're throwing the ball 30, 40 times a game, you're going to have opportunities where teams are going to get a chance to pick the ball off. Whether it's you made the wrong read, whether you thought that the you know, that the defense was playing a different coverage. So those are going to be opportunities that present themselves throughout games where teams are going to have a chance to intercept the ball, or it's going to be a tip pass, and it's a chance for the other team to catch it. It's up to the other team to come down with the football. So in this instance, that's why I tipped my hat to the New Orleans Saints, because the Honey Badger was Johnny on the spot. He made the play. Kirk Cousins made a bad throw. It didn't hit the dirt. It hit his hands, and he caught it. So at the end of the day, that's the difference between the football game. I really thought in that Saints game, one of the key plays was going to be Alvin Kamara dropping that wide open touchdown at the end of the game, where basically Caden Ellis blew the coverage and Alvin Kamara was gone 5 yards. He was down the field. Nobody was with him. He would have had a walk-in touchdown, but he dropped it. Similar to that Philadelphia Eagles game where you had Saquon Barkley drop that ball in the flat. It was another similar play where I thought the football gods was going to help the Falcons, because Alvin Kamara could have iced that game easily by just catching that pass on that swing route, that wheel route up the sideline. He was wide open. He just ended up dropping the ball. So, as I mentioned, the Falcons had numerous opportunities in that game. No excuses. We had numerous opportunities. We didn't make the plays when they were presented. And 6MK says, right, Jew, we must take what the defense gives us, especially that Kirk interception. Yeah, exactly. We have to take what they're giving us. If they're gonna give us something, we got to take it. And William Amy says, Raheem Morris have to get back to basic man fundamentals football. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't think that Raheem Morris is a bad coach. I think he's done an excellent job so far in his first year with the Falcons, trying to change the culture and things of that nature, putting emphasis on winning your division games. The Falcons have done that. We're 4-1. We only have one more game, so we could easily end it 5-1. And it's very hard to beat your rivals 2 games in a row. It's hard to beat any team 2 games in a row, whether they suck or whatever the case may be. Those division games always come down to the wire usually. So no excuses. Like I said, this Falcons team should have walked into New Orleans and won that game. But what we learned is this was another life lesson for this team, to tell them nothing's going to be given to you. You got to go in there and take it, especially when you're walking into hostile territory. We know what it is when it comes to the Saints. They're our arch rivals. We were, taking over Bourbon Street and doing all of that kind of stuff, but you got to understand that those guys were going to feed off of that, and they fed off of it. So we gave them bulletin board material. And Mad Mike says you wouldn't need it, Koo, if you scored touchdowns. That's exactly the point. If you scored touchdowns, Koo wouldn't even be in the equation. Now, yes, Koo need to do his job, but at the same time, if you scored touchdowns, that wouldn't even been an issue. And Chris says he had a bad game. Koo is still number 4 in the NFC, number 10 in the NFL, and 100% on extra points this season. Exactly. I agree 100% with you, Christy. And that's why I made my video yesterday where I said I'm not worried about Younghoe Koo. He's the least of my worries. Until he shows me a consistency of him missing kicks over and over and over again, like let him have two games like he had, like 2 or 3 games like he's had consistent, like he missed field goals like that. You're going to see the Falcons bring in kicking competition. Like if he, God forbid, knock on wood, I'm not trying to speak this into existence, but if he has a bad game kicking in Denver, then you're going to possibly see them bring in somebody to a kicking competition. They're going to bring in another kicker if he has another 1 for 4 outing. So Younghoe Koo, I don't believe that that's who he is. I really feel like that was an aberration. As he talked about Steph Curry missing 3-point shots, Steph Curry is not going to go 1 for 10 a whole lot shooting the 3 ball. That's just not who he is. Now, has he had games where he's shot terrible from the field? Yes, that happens to everybody. That happens to shooters. If you're a volume shooter, there's going to be times where you miss shots. That's just a part of the game. There's going to be times where you miss kicks. There's going to be times as a running back like Bijan last year where he was fumbling the ball. There's going to be times where you may drop a pass as a wide receiver or tight end. But what we really going to find out what Koo is made of is moving forward. We're going to really find out what he's really made of in this next game to see if he can get past those mistakes. And I think he will. And Bobby Bowie Zone 3 says, Koo is going to redeem himself. I completely agree. Koo is the least of my worries at this point. But with that being said, we got like 20 minutes left in the show. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into my next topic. But that was, where I stand with it. I think the Falcons are contenders. I don't think that they're pretenders. I really feel like we are right up there with any of the teams in the league. But based off of how we play football and the way that we've been playing football, we're going to have a lot of nip-tuck games. Until this Falcons team gets better at forcing negative plays on first and second down, until we get better at forcing turnovers, until we get better at getting the quarterback on the ground, the way that we're playing defense, where we're being a defensive, a team that reacts on defense instead of a team that attacks opposing offenses, we're going to have a lot of close games. That just is what it is. The only way we're going to blow teams out is if our defense creates turnovers and if our offense scores touchdowns. If we're kicking field goals, if we're not getting the quarterback on the ground, if we're not forcing turnovers on opposing teams, you're going to see a lot of close games. Those games are going to come down to the wire every time in the fourth quarter because you don't have a chance to double up. If you get an interception and then you're scoring touchdowns and you're capitalizing on the other team's mistakes, you're going to be up by multiple touchdowns or multiple possessions so you can force teams to have to pass the ball. But right now we're not doing that. We're not getting consistent turnovers. Against New Orleans, I don't think we had any turnovers. We didn't have no interceptions, and I don't think we had any sacks in that game. So if you play games that way, every single team you play going to be right there in the football game with you because you're not, giving yourself an opportunity to score more points. If you're not putting up those points on offense and you're not creating turnovers, you're not getting the quarterback on the ground, it's going to be nip-tuck ball games. Every game, the team going to be right there with you. But with that being said, we're going to go ahead and just preview a little bit this Denver Broncos versus Atlanta Falcons matchup. The Denver Broncos currently sit at 5-5. We're going to Mile High to go face those Denver Broncos. We know that this high altitude when you're playing in Denver. So hope these guys are ready. I hope these guys come prepared to play. Raheem Morris stated that the team is not going to leave early to prepare for the high altitude and things of that nature. So at the end of the day, there should be no excuses. This is another game where the Atlanta Falcons are the better team. You're facing the Denver Broncos team on offense with Bo Nix, who is a former Auburn Tiger alum. And you guys know that I'm an Auburn Tigers fan when it comes to college football. So I know Bo Nix like the back of my hand. Bo Nix is a guy that will turn the ball over, but Bo Nix is a fighter. Bo Nix's father is a high school football coach. Bo Nix is one of those guys that's similar to a Baker Mayfield. He's a guy who can run. He's a guy that will not give up in the game. He's going to keep continuous scratching and clawing because that's how he was raised. He's been around football his whole entire life. And he is a guy that is a solid quarterback. He did play at Oregon when he transferred from Auburn. And he's a guy that proves that he can throw the ball with consistency, with accuracy. But at times he can be sporadic if you pressure him. If the Falcons don't come out and pressure Bo Nix in this game, you allow him to get comfortable, he's going to move the ball up and down the field. We've seen this on Thursday Night Football against the New Orleans Saints 2 weeks ago, where Bo Nix had his way with the Saints, and that's a team that we just lost to. So, and the Saints are one of those teams that's pretty solid. Like they're a team on the defensive side of the ball. They haven't played well this year, but when they played the Saints, they had guys like Marshawn Lattimore. They had guys, on that Saints defense that was still guys that are household names. They had Demario Davis playing. So in this game, it's going to be very important that the Falcons come out and pressure Bo Nix early. We know that Sean Payton is a guy that's going to put his guys in good positions to succeed. It's going to be a lot of running the ball, a lot of bootleg actions, a lot of guys in the flats, and they're going to take what the defense gives them. So if Raheem Morris and Jimmy Lake decide that we're going to have our corners playing 8 yards off the ball and 6 yards off the ball like we consistently do all season long, Bo Nix is going to take his checkdowns to his running backs. He's going to take those quick outs to his wide receivers like Cortland Sutton. He's going to take whatever the defense is giving him. He's going to use his legs, prepare for the read option this game, because Bo Nix will run the ball in this game. He will put the ball in the running back's belly. If you bite down, Judon, if you bite down, if AK, you bite down on the run game, he's going to take the corner. So this is going to be a very important game for guys to be gap sound on defense. This is going to be a huge game for guys to do their responsibility on the edges. You have to have gap integrity. You have to keep the edge. If you're supposed to be setting the edge, don't let me catch you diving down on the inside, because if you dive down, Bo Nix will get the edge. He will outrun you to the corner, because we don't have super athletic edges. Unless you're putting Caden Ellis or Troy Anderson out there, Bo Nix is athletic enough to beat AK to the corner. He's athletic enough definitely to beat guys like Zach Harrison to the corner, Onyemata. He's going to beat them guys around the corner. So unless you got the Caden Ellis's and Troy Anderson's on the edge, those other guys, Judon, he'll beat Judon to the corner. He's more athletic than Matthew Judon, and Bo Nix is faster than you think. So in this game, it's going to be very important that guys play their assignment. Do not try to be a hero in this game. Just do what you're supposed to do. Out of the one of the 11 guys, be in your position, stay in your position. Don't try to do nothing special. Just do what you're supposed to do, especially if we come out playing the soft zone that we play, which 9 times out of 10, I don't expect Jimmy Lake to change. I don't expect Raheem Morris to change. The way that this Atlanta Falcons defense plays football, we try to wait for the team to make a mistake. So we're going to play a lot of zone coverage in this game. We're going to hope that Bo Nix makes a bad read. We're going to hope that one of the balls get tipped off of a wide receiver's hands where it falls into our lap and Jesse Bates can make a play on the ball. We're hoping that Justin Simmons, is just Johnny on the spot, right place, right time, interception. AJ Terrell, similar to what he did against Baker Mayfield, where he was able to trick him and then, go up the rail and make that interception in that game. That's what I expect this Atlanta Falcons defense to do in this game, is they're going to come out and they're going to wait for Bo Nix to make a mistake. I don't expect us to come out and rush and blitz him, even though I think that's what we should do. Based off of the 10 games that I've watched this Atlanta Falcons defense so far this season, they're not making too many adjustments to what they want to do. This Falcons team want to score points on offense, and then they want to play bend but don't break defense, on the defensive side of the ball. So in this game, if that's what you're going to come out and do, everybody better be gap sound. Everybody be able to play they 1 of 11 their assignment. Because don't get caught with your eyes in the wrong spot in this game, because Bo Nix will surprise you. Like I said, similar to Baker Mayfield, Bo Nix is a similar Baker Mayfield type. That's what he's going to do. He's going to make plays, but he's also going to give you opportunities to make plays, because he's going to throw the ball in a crowd. At times in this game, he's going to throw an inaccurate football where we're going to have a chance to get an interception. At times, he's going to hold on to the ball, and look to make plays. Because one thing about Bo Nix is that I've noticed this season, he doesn't sit in the pocket really long. If it starts breaking down, he's like a 1 or 2 read quarterback. He's going to take off and run. So in this game, it's going to be important that guys don't get caught with their back turned. It's going to be important that guys don't be doing spin moves and all of that on the defensive line. Make sure you always have your eye on the quarterback in this game, because Bo Nix is I'm reading 1 or 2 guys, and then I'm RPOing. I'm running. If it ain't nothing there, I'm taking off and taking the edge, or I'm running for a first down with my legs. So that's what we need to do on defense, is just be gap sound, play your assignment, stop the run. They're going to come out and try to establish the run. They're going to try to establish play action. They're going to play a very vanilla, the Broncos play a very vanilla style offense, because Bo Nix is a young player. So I don't expect too many tricks in this game. If you do what you're supposed to do, we should win this game on the defensive side of the ball, going up against their offense, because they're very inexperienced, but they're well coached. So just because they're inexperienced, don't take them lightly and think, okay, he's a rookie and these guys are young, because they have a really good head coach in Sean Payton, who's familiar with Raheem Morris. He's familiar with the Atlanta Falcons just in general. So he knows what the weak points are. He knows that the Falcons struggle to rush the passer. He knows what we're trying to do, and he's gonna come with his antidote to try to take advantage of what we do poorly. So we have to be on our toes in this game. Now, on the offensive side of the ball, this is going to be another week where I say the same thing I said last week. And it's going to be the mantra moving forward. Run the football, know who you are, know your identity. Don't be don't be afraid to play ugly and make the game ugly. Run the football, establish the trenches early in the game, then you hit them with the play action pass. But it's going to be opportunities in this game to throw the ball down the field. But this Denver defense is better than a lot of people think they are. Their defense, they're young, but they're also well coached as well. So, and they're aggressive. Unlike the Atlanta Falcons, the Broncos are not afraid to blitz. So, expecting this game, them to try to heat Kirk Cousins up. They're not going to give Kirk Cousins all day to throw the ball. This game, they're going to try to pressure with their linebackers. They're going to pressure with corners, safeties. They're going to do everything in their power in this game to make Kirk Cousins uncomfortable. So the way that you get Kirk in his bag and get him comfortable in this game, come out running the football. Similar to what we heard a couple weeks ago, where Kirk Cousins said he trotted in the locker room. I think it was the game against the Bucks, the second week against the Bucks, the second game against the Bucks, where he trotted in the locker room. He said that Zach Robinson asked him, "What do you like on offense?" He said, "I like running the ball because we're getting 4 and 5 yards a clip." That's what the Falcons team should try to do in this game. Come in this game, establish Bijan Robinson, who's on fire right now. Establish Tyler Algier. Let those guys do the heavy lifting. Let your offensive line do the heavy lifting. Because we're playing in high altitude and these guys are used to playing in mile high, the way that you get acclimated to this type of altitude, let your offensive line be offensive linemen. Let them be the big uglies up front. Let them push this defensive line of the Denver Broncos around. The way that you take the aggression out of a team that blitzes and things of that nature is you allow your offensive line to be aggressive as well. Don't have these guys backpedaling the whole game. Let Chris Lindstrom, let Caleb McGarry, let guys like, I don't know if Dahlman will play in this game, but if not, let Newsel, let Bergeron and Jake Matthews, let them plow through this defensive line of the Denver Broncos. Let Bijan Robinson do what he does best, which is he's seeing the field very well. His vision, his ability to break tackles, his contact balance. We've seen it on Sunday with the long run, which I thought was one of the changing plays of the game, where he ran the ball up the sideline, broke through a tackle, and then drug Honey Badger about 5 to 10 yards down the field for the touchdown. Allow these guys to do what they do best. With this Atlanta Falcons team, our identity is running the football, allowing that offensive line to be tough, physical, and oppose their will on the opponent. So that's what I'm looking for in this Atlanta Falcons offense. When you get in the red zone, score touchdowns. Don't look for Younghoe Koo to be the reason that you win the game. Go out there and dominate the Denver Broncos, because this is another week where I can say again, Denver is not equipped to put up 30-plus points. Denver is not a team that's putting up a lot of points, and they're not a team that wants to rely on Bo Nix having to throw the ball. They're a similar team that they want to limit teams. They want to keep the score low. So in this game, you want to limit the Denver Broncos to their ability to score points, and you want to put up points. You want to make this a barn burner. I don't believe that Bo Nix and this offense of the Broncos are ready to have to put up big points and try to match you score for score, similar to what we did with the Bucks that first game, where we were going on that Thursday night back and forth, back and forth. I really feel like if you put the game in Bo Nix's hands, he gonna make a mistake. So in this game, if you're the Falcons, if I'm the Falcons and we win the coin toss, take the ball, go right down the field, score a touchdown, and see if they can match that intensity. I really don't feel like the Denver Broncos are equipped to put up 28 to 30 points. And this Falcons team is averaging about 25 points a game. So they're going to have to prove to me that they can, put up those amount of points. But I'm coming out and I'm establishing the run in this game. Yeah, you have Mooney. Yeah, you have Drake London. Yeah, you have Kyle Pitts. And you want to be balanced. You want to give those guys opportunities as well. But when it's time to win the game, when it's winning time, establish the trenches. Don't have Kirk Cousins dropping back to pass 35 to 40 times in this game. Balance it out. I want to see at least 30 handoffs in this game. Give that ball to Bijan. Give that ball to Tyler Algier. Let those guys play physical. Let those guys drain that clock and keep our defense rested and on the sideline. So when they do come in the game, they're ready to roll. And let's see here. So Robert Ponder says, what's up, Jew? Got to get a pass rush. Yeah, I completely agree. In this game, you definitely have to establish the pass rush. I mean, in this game, you want to force Bo Nix to be the reason that the Denver Broncos win. If the Denver Broncos are forced to pass the ball 35 to 40 times in this game, and they do it and win the game, I'm walking to the middle of the field. I'm shaking Sean Payton's hand, and I'm shaking Bo Nix's hand and saying, "You're a hell of a player." But what I don't want to happen in this game is you come out passing the ball, turning the ball over, giving them opportunities on short fields, allowing them to run the ball on third downs, keeping us on the field, allowing Bo Nix to continue drives with his legs. That's what I don't want to see in this game is the time of possession lopsided again, because you allowed them to control the football and drain clock and keep Kirk Cousins in this high flying offense on the sideline. And CG2K says it was the Panthers game. Okay, well, the Panthers game. I thank you for correcting me. Let's see. So if you guys got any questions, I'll answer a few questions before we get ready to wrap it up. But for the most part, I just want to give you guys a preview of this game against Denver. Like I said, this Denver team, they're more feisty than you think. They are a solid team, and they've been in majority of the games that they've played. For what I'm looking at the scores from their games. They really haven't been blown out a whole lot this year. The only time that it looks like they were blown out was against the Ravens, which was 2 weeks ago. The Ravens blew them out 41-10. But their last game that they faced was the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, which was last Sunday, and they lost the game 14-16, and that was on a blocked field goal because I think they had like a 36-yard field goal to win the game. They were in position to kick the game-winning field goal. And what does good teams always do? Find a way to win. The Chiefs blocked the field goal. So that's the reason that they actually lost the game. So they really could have been the first team this year that could have upset the Kansas City Chiefs in Arrowhead, because that was just past Sunday's game. They blocked the game-winning kick basically to prevent them from winning the game. But it shows last week, I'm looking at the numbers. Bo Nix was 22 of 30, 215 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, 0 INTs, was sacked twice by Kansas City. But they ran the ball 23 times for 78 yards, which is not great. That's 3.4 yards to carry. And let's see. Yeah, so like I said, their team is better than you think. Pat Mahomes was sacked 4 times last week. He was 28 of 42, 266 yards passing, and a touchdown, 0 INTs. And they only ran the ball 19 times last week. So that was a problem. They got out of balance. They rushed the ball 19 times with the Chiefs and threw the ball 42 times. Then they only run the ball for 57 yards. But they end up winning that football game late in the game due to a blocked field goal. So that just goes to show you that this Denver team is not a team to sleep on. Any Sean Payton coach team is not a team to sleep on, because Sean Payton is a really good coach. But that just goes to show you that this team is not going to lay down for us. They almost just beat their arch rivals at Arrowhead, the defending champs. They lost by 2 points. So if you're thinking that this is going to be a cakewalk type game, it's not going to be that. It's not going to be sweet when you go and play these boys. You're going to have to go in there and take it from them. And Xavier Littman says, is Anderson expected to miss any time with his aggravating that knee injury again? I'm not too sure. I definitely will do my research on that. Then once I get the information, I'll drop a video or something about Troy Anderson, but I don't know if he's out again. And let's see. Big Ant says, do you think Dorless will get some playing time this week? I'm not too sure. He may get some playing time, but I'm not too sure if they'll play him or not. I think that they should give him a try because you had Rook Ororo go down. So when Rook went down, I thought that, okay, this is going to open the door for Dorless. But Dorless got to show them at practice that he deserves to get playing time. He has to do better when he's on the scout team. Right now, Dorless is on the scout team. So on the scout team, you got to show that you getting in the backfield and you getting active. If you show that you're really good in practice, usually that's what gives the opposing coaches and things of that nature, the head coaches and the coordinators. That's usually what will give you a shot because your scout team is going up against the first team. So if Dorless can show them in practice that he getting a push and stuff like that, and that it's hard to block him, he's getting in the backfield on Kirk and things of that nature. Of course, he's not going to take Kirk to the ground, but if he shows them that he's ready to play, I really could see them pulling him up because this Falcons team, one thing I can say about the coaching staff is they're giving other guys opportunities. You seen Kareem Khalid play last week on the edge. He was a guy that I didn't even know was on this team, came off the bench and played. They pulled him up off the practice squad. Then you seen D'Angelo Malone was another guy that wasn't getting no snaps on the edge. But because we weren't getting no production, they started giving him opportunities to rush the passer. So I believe that they'll give Dorless an opportunity. He just has to prove that he deserves that opportunity. And let's see here. And Jermaine Walton, what's going on, man? He says, since Rashaan Evans on the team, will he get some playing time? He's actually a player that I think should be getting playing time. I don't know why he hasn't gotten any playing time. If you ask me why he hasn't gotten playing time, my thought or guess would be he didn't know the scheme. He didn't know the playbook yet and like the language because he's a inside linebacker. So he'll have to be a guy because he was brought in like mid-season. I really feel like he has to learn the playbook before he'll actually get playing time. So I could see him possibly getting playing time. He wasn't dressed last week. He was just on the sideline like in a t-shirt and sweats. But I think the week before that, they actually pulled him up when the week that Troy Anderson still was injured. He was on the sideline with a helmet. So Rashaan Evans was in full gear 2 weeks ago, but he wasn't in gear last week. He wasn't activated. He was inactive last week. So maybe he'll get an opportunity once they think that he has a grasp of the playbook. I really feel like that's the biggest issue of why he hasn't seen any playing time is he was brought in mid-season. So because he was brought in mid-season, he needed time to learn the playbook. And he's another guy that's on the practice. He's one of those guys that I think is on the scout team as well. So, and let's see. And William Amy says, I watched that game. Kirk Cousins hold the ball too much. We need this win moving forward. I don't think Kirk did a bad job last week of holding the ball too long. I think what happened last week was if you look at the play where the strip sack fumble, Caleb McGarry basically tripped over his own feet. He tripped and he fell and he didn't block at all. So it's like the rusher came unblocked. So I think Kirk Cousins, all quarterbacks had that time in their head of 1, 2, 3, the ball got to come out. In this instance, because McGarry fell, he didn't even touch the defender at all. That countdown, 1, 2, he was hit in the back of the head. Like he didn't have that 1, 2, 3, get the ball out. It was just like because he didn't realize it was coming from his blind spot, and he didn't see the guy coming. He was going through his progressions, but that timer in his head didn't go off because the guy was untouched. He wasn't expecting that defensive end or a defensive outside linebacker to come unblocked. And that's what happened on that play. If you go back and look, the dude literally came unblocked. So at that point, that's really more on McGarry than it is on Kirk Cousins. Now, have there been times in this season where Kirk has held onto the ball and I'm like, just throw it away, or you take off and run? There have been a couple plays this year where Kirk has held on to it too long. But last week, I don't think that was an issue. I really think that it was an offensive line. They blew a couple of coverages. They failed, whatever. It was some miscommunication, and that is what led to the turnovers that we saw. It wasn't Kirk holding on to the ball too long. But with that being said, I'm going to get up out of here, man. I appreciate each and every one of you guys for your continued support, continuing to share out the content, continuing to support the channel. If you would like to be a part of the Jew Talk Sports membership, hit that like button or hit that join button on the channel. If you like to be subscribe to the channel, hit that subscribe button for your boy. Help us get to 3,000. But we will be going live tomorrow night for the Heavy Hitters Live. So we join us on the Heavy Hitters Live channel. Hit that subscribe button there as well. We will be talking about this matchup between our Atlanta Falcons and the Denver Broncos, giving some of our keys to victory. Y'all stay tuned to the channel because I have a lot more content coming for you guys. Today, I'll drop a couple videos in regards to just the NFL in general. Probably a couple of videos too about our Atlanta Falcons, checking in to see on some of these injuries and things of that nature, and some updates on guys for you guys. But with that being said, I'll holler at you guys in the next video. As always, Falcons Nation, rise up, be blessed. Peace.